Hi, I'm Lauren,
And I'm Matt.
and this is Publish and Prosper.
Where publishing, e-commerce, and marketing collide.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Publish and Prosper. I would love to open with a really quippy and funny intro right now, but I unfortunately have nothing going on in my brain at this current point in time, so I got nothing to offer you. Actually, I do have something to offer you, specifically
That was
you.
a very aggressive point.
You're welcome.
Pointer finger. I'm worried that what you're pulling out of your pocket's going to... Oh, is this for me?
Yes.
Let's see. What does it say?
That's it. Start there.
Wait, start where?
There.
This one?
Yep.
Live fast, park pass, die fun. I like it.
Thanks.
Very
Glad
cool.
you like it. I made some new bracelets this weekend, and that was
That meant
from a
you
Lost
wrote,
Bros t-shirt.
You wrote some more words then.
Again, not for my own book, but yes, I did.
Well, whose book are you writing words for?
Fan fiction.
We're definitely going to do an episode on fan fiction.
I would love to do an episode on fan fiction. I think it would be really fun, and I think you'd get to make fun of me for 45 minutes straight.
I don't want to do that. I mean, I do that every day at work anyway.
I know, but this would be like...
I think you need a reminder as to why you shouldn't spend all of your writing time on fan fiction.
I'm
and
not.
Some of it on something you actually are going to publish.
I'm not. I would call this a writing exercise where I'm getting back into the habit of writing every day by writing some low pressure content
Okay.
that I will hopefully be able to funnel back into my own original content once I'm getting back in the stride of writing on a regular basis.
All right. Well, thank you for my bracelet. It's very cool. What are yours
You're
say
welcome.
today?
I have one of those for myself too. So that, and then my other two say me and my ghost and idiots in love. No further questions at this time.
Nope. No notes.
Nope. Okay, great.
Yeah.
We are unfortunately talking about things other than bracelets today. Unfortunately, yeah, it's not our primary content.
Yeah, because I would absolutely love to spend the next 45 minutes talking about bracelets.
I think we could do an episode where I bring my whole bowl of bracelets in and we go through every single one of them.
Well, that's a whole nother story.
Talk about the origin story of each one of them.
Oh my goodness. I don't know if I want to know the origin story of all of them, but I bet there's probably some bangers in there.
There are some bangers in there.
All right.
So maybe we'll get around to them eventually.
Well, then what are we talking about today?
Today, we are talking about something that I think might be a little divisive, perhaps even amongst your two hosts. But we are going to be talking about how to maximize your book's discoverability in a world where a lot of what we're used to when it comes to maximizing search and discoverability is changing, actively changing. Mm-hmm. This is something that we can't even say oh, this is different than it was a year ago. This is different than it was a week ago.
Yeah,
right
that's
now.
true. Yep.
And who knows? At this point, who knows what it's going to look like? The digital landscape for search and discoverability is going to look like in a month from now. So,
different for sure.
Different for sure. So we'll call this a timely episode, but also somewhat of a time-stamped episode.
Right.
Yeah.
So, well, yeah, there's definitely a timestamp there to a degree. I do think the general sort of principles and concepts around all of this will remain somewhat relatively the same. I just think that the things that'll keep changing will probably just be the amount of information available each time you do a new search. I mean, because these models are growing every day, right?
Yep.
And they're changing the way sometimes that they scrape for this information, or there's all these other external factors that are influencing the way this stuff is evolving. So, but I do think these concepts will pretty much remain the same. So I think you could probably listen to this episode again next year And a lot of it is probably still going to be relevant and stuff you should be doing, especially as it relates to AI.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I'm going to spoil my own thesis right at the top up here and say that most of the stuff that we're going to talk about in here about how to maximize your book's discoverability is also stuff that while it's things that will help, or while it's all stuff that we would argue we have learned is going to be helpful for maximizing your discoverability with AI and search and stuff like that. It's also stuff that you should be doing in general in order to maximize your discoverability with an actual audience of readers and not just digital landscapes and algorithms and stuff like that. So this is all stuff that you should be doing anyway. So it should be relevant no matter what.
We'll see.
Hopefully. But maybe we should just jump right in. Maybe that's the easiest way to kind of explain where we're going with this.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. So just kind of to paint the scene a little bit, I'm sure we're all familiar with this at this point, how things are different. Even in like the last 6 months, if you go on Google and you're searching on Google, it looks different now than it did a year ago.
Looks different now than it did 6 months ago.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Even then.
Yeah.
But I went to a session at Content Marketing World last year in October of 2024 that was put on by two people from SparkToro.
Yes.
And they were presenting a study that they had done on Google searches and generated AI summaries and how that was kind of impacting like click-through rates and metrics and all kinds of different stuff about that. I've linked it in the show notes if you want to take a look at it. It's actually really interesting. It's called the zero-click search study.
Was it Rand and Amanda?
Rand wrote the article presenting the survey. Amanda was the one actually presenting it. But it was really interesting. And one of the things that they shared during that was just like so shocking to me when they first said it was in 2024, 58.5% of Google searches were what they call zero-click searches.
Right.
Which does actually, if you think about, again, what Google search results look like now, as soon as you start thinking about that actually makes sense. Because, we find ourselves a lot right now where you go on Google and you just want to search, what was the opening day of Magic Kingdom? And like the answer comes up in the Google search page.
Right.
You don't have to click anything. You don't have to go read a history of Disney website in order to find that out. The answer is generated right there.
Yes. So, and for everybody listening right now, they're probably like, well, yeah, that's what we want. Like we want our questions answered. And yes, to a degree, that is what you want as a search consumer. Like, you're searching for something, you want the answers, and the faster they can be displayed with less clicks, most of the time that's what you're looking for. As a business, as a brand, as an author, as somebody who's trying to sell something or promote something, that's not what you want. And so there's been this weird juxtaposition right now where Google's whole revenue model was based on ad sales, right? Those little sponsored listings and things that you see. And to a degree, they're in this weird limbo right now where, ad sales for them are dropping because there's this zero-click sort of ecosystem that's been, evolving a lot faster. And so what they're doing is trading off that ad sales revenue for this idea that they want to keep people on Google longer. They want to keep people on the Google search pages or, other pages longer so that they can develop some other ways to get money out of you. And to replace that ad revenue. So again, I think there's arguments here, as a search consumer, you're probably like, yeah, this is great. I get my information faster. Whether or not you trust it is a whole nother story. But if you're on the other end of that, this is not a great thing, and you're who we're talking to right now. So making sure that you appear in search results these days is not quite as easy as it used to be. Not that it was super easy prior to this, but hopefully we'll be able to help you understand a little bit better how these search results, these zero-click search results are being generated, how you can try and make sure that you're in there. And if you are, still wanting to drive somebody back to your website or your social media channels or your email list or whatever that is, hopefully you'll come away with some ideas and tips on how to do that. So this really is to give you a pretty good understanding, at least, of what the current search ecosystem looks like, how it is that people are getting discovered or not anymore because of the onset of generative AI and chat AI in these search engines. But hopefully to make you comfortable with that and drive some creative ways that you might be able to game that system too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's also maybe an attempt to underline some other points that we've made recently.
Sure.
So you'll see, actually, I didn't even do this on purpose. So I'm not gonna pretend that I did this on purpose.
This is one of those times where you should have just withheld that information.
No, I like to be honest. I'm not going to pretend.
To a fault.
That's true. But when you're looking at that other 42...
What do you use ChatGPT for in your personal life?
Oh, in my personal life, I don't. I only use it for work.
Are you for real?
Yeah.
So when you search, do you go by what pops up at the top that's generated by Chat, or do you scroll down to the actual search engine listings?
It depends on what information it is that I'm looking for. And it also depends on what sources are provided by the generative search at the top. So if it is something that, like, very factually, I'm just looking for what was the official opening date of Magic Kingdom. Like that, I don't feel like I need to dive deeper into. Like, I feel pretty confident that Gemini, or whatever Google is calling their generative search result thing, is going to give me an actual correct answer on that. That's a pretty straightforward fact. But if I'm looking for a list of the top 10 best restaurants at Walt Disney World, and it tries to give me a generated, like, summary at the top up there, I might skim through it to see what's included in that list, but I'm also going to pay close attention to see what sources it's taking that list from. Yeah. And weigh, like, what I take as reality from that based on those sources. And then I probably still will go scroll down and look at, like, I want to choose the sources that I trust and read what their top 10 lists are, rather than what Google has randomly decided to include here.
To go back to what you said a little earlier, or what you were talking about, I should say, anytime you see something that was written by Rand Fishkin, believe it. Yeah. There's probably no better resource, over the years for all things search related. His first company that he started, or the one he's probably most famous for, was Moz, which is a massive platform for search and discoverability. A lot of those who might be listening that started their marketing career in search, like I did, you're very familiar with Rand Fishkin and Moz. And then he went on to found SparkToro, which is the tool that you were talking about earlier. It's a great tool, by the way. We're not reimbursed by them. We don't have an affiliate program in place, but we use SparkToro. It is a discoverability tool. Yeah. So it can help you do some of the things we're talking about, or help you, get to a better level of discoverability should you choose to check it out. But nonetheless, anytime you find anything written by Rand Fishkin, you can trust that it's probably very well written, very well researched, and it's going to be extremely detailed and analytical. So
yeah, and that is the SparkToro article that I have linked in the show notes was written by him, which I think that we referenced or recommended, and if we didn't, I'm belatedly recommending it now, SparkToro in our metadata episode.
I think we did.
We did, and spoiler alert, that is relevant to this episode topic as well.
Yeah,
So,
it is.
very relevant. We'll get to that, but also if you haven't listened to that episode, I would definitely recommend.
I'm still amazed that you don't use ChatGPT at all in your personal life. What about Claude or Perplexity? None of them?
Nope.
Man.
I use those tools for work, and I'm not going to lie and say that I don't use them for work on a fairly regular basis. Well, but yeah, I don't use any of them personally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well. But going back to my point about not necessarily timing out these episodes intentionally, we just did the episode with Chelsea where we talked about the value of long-form video content and having some kind of long-form video presence, particularly on YouTube. And in doing the research for this episode, of those 41.5% of Google searches that have an actual click as a part of their result, 30% or 29% of those 41% are going to Google-owned properties, which include YouTube.
Right.
But also beyond that, YouTube, or at least as of October of 2024, this is another article that I have linked in the show notes, YouTube is the second most popular search engine worldwide.
Yeah, that's important to know and continue to know. YouTube has been second most popular, for the most part, for quite some time. It's no coincidence that it's owned by Google, obviously. Right. The fact that, as recent as October of 2024, it was still registered as the second largest search engine is pretty amazing. I would imagine it will probably hold on to that title for a while because, as you just said, and as we'll see, Google wants to keep people on their pages, on their properties. And so even as they continue to evolve, the way the search experience is going to unfold and be used by search consumers, let alone advertisers, they're still going to prioritize things like YouTube results and other properties that they own. And, I don't think there's going to be any action taken to stop them from that anytime soon. So that's an important thing to know for anybody who's not actively experimenting with YouTube content for what you do. I understand that sometimes for fiction authors, something like a YouTube channel, and, again, this is timely because we did just have Chelsea on here talking about this, but for authors, sometimes a YouTube channel can sound intimidating or irrelevant or something you're just not interested in trying right now. But I would urge you to listen to that episode with Chelsea and just know that it's probably one of the easier channels to get started on. And there's a lot of great tips and stuff in there from Chelsea about how to overcome, maybe some of that fear of being on camera if that's your thing or whatever that might be. But just being armed with the information and understanding that the second largest search engine in the world right now is YouTube should be a motivator for a lot of people to be using YouTube in whatever way they can.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, if you did listen to that episode and you'd like more, like a deeper dive into okay, so how do we actually do that? How do we get started? What are some best practices for stuff like that? Would love to have Chelsea back to talk more about that. So if that's something that you're interested in, let us know and we'll get her back here for more of a deep dive.
Why are you asking me?
I'm not. I'm letting you off the hook. You get a free day one day soon. I don't know. Next time she's back in the office.
I don't remember what a free day is, but I'll take it. No. I'll take half a free day.
I've seen your calendar. I know exactly what that looks like.
It's just full of Publish and Prosper calendar invites.
Yeah, I just block off weeks at a time on Matt's calendar.
I would rather record podcasts all day, every day than a lot of the other stuff.
That might be one of the nicest things you've said to me in this podcast.
Well, it has nothing to do with you. I just like being on the podcast. I'm just kidding. Oh. Of course it has something to do with you, except when you're smashing the microphone with your hand.
I know. Sorry. Sorry. That noise is going to be inevitable later. Sorry to myself when I go back to edit this later and hear that.
All right.
Anyway, let's get into this a little bit because I think we actually have a lot to talk about in here. But I want to talk a little bit about just what we've seen. And again, I want to preface this with this is all kind of information that people are actively learning about right now. So, I can't say with 100% confidence, this is definitely for sure exactly how AI tools choose what to cite or recommend, or like this is exactly for sure 100% how all of this works. But as people are exploring these different tools and trying to get a better grasp and understanding of how they work and how they are delivering content and how they're choosing the content that they deliver, this is what we're starting to see unfold as this is what we think they're doing.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
I also asked ChatGPT to explain this to me because I thought it would be interesting to try to have a generative AI tool explain itself to me.
I've seen a lot of these that are really fun and a lot of that are scary. But
Yeah.
let's see what yours said.
Well, I mean, ChatGPT was scary enough this morning when I opened it and I asked it a question and it said, "Hey, Lauren, sure, I can help you out with that." And I was like, "Oh no, when did you learn my name? I don't remember telling you my name."
It's attached to your account.
It's fine. It just was startling. Startling when anyone uses my name.
Do you get startled when you open an email and it says, "Hello, Lauren"?
Yes, especially if it's coming from somebody that I don't know.
All right. Fair.
I don't want to be perceived. Please do not address me by name. But if you are going to do it, address me by the correct name.
You should literally start filling out everything now with your name as Elder Emo, and that way you'll get marketing collateral that says, "Dear Elder Emo."
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
That is such a good idea. All right, I'll keep that in mind. Anyway.
What did ChatGPT tell you?
ChatGPT said that generative AI generates answers based on patterns in massive data sets and pulls in fresh, cited content from trusted sources when connected to real-time search.
It's very fond of its accuracy, isn't it?
It really is. It actually referred to itself at one point as like a cautious assistant or something. It was talking about like how it's like very cautious about what sources it cites. And I was like, debatable, but okay.
It's interesting. It says, patterns in massive data sets and pulls in fresh cited content from trusted sources when connected to real-time search.
Yeah.
There are still, one thing that people should understand is that it still hallucinates pretty regularly. You can ask ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or any of these tools that are out there now any number of questions, and there's still a decent chance, depending on the question and the tool you're using, that you're going to get information that's not 100% accurate, and in some cases wildly inaccurate.
Right.
So the caveat here that we should say, again, always kind of double check, or at least, if your gut is telling you, "I don't know if this is right," then go double check it some other way, because most of them still hallucinate. Most of them still are pulling information from other places that they didn't give you in this answer. So, be careful with that. But it is more than likely how it says it's being trained to scrape, billions and billions of pieces of information, but they can't all be right. They can't all be accurate, and they can't all have good intentions. There's a lot of nefarious content out there on the internet. I mean, we can't have nice things. So,
well, I think that's probably the really important thing to remember on here is that when it emphasizes things like, massive data sets or trusted sources or high authority sources was another phrase it used at one point. You have to take into account what those sources actually are.
Yeah. Their definition of high authority and high quality. Yeah.
Right. Like ChatGPT or generative AI tools might consider Wikipedia a high authority source. And a lot of times Wikipedia can be a high authority source, but it is also a crowdsourced website that can have inaccurate, not factual information on it.
100%.
Or, it will also, we know for a fact that it'll also scrape sites like Reddit, which again, Reddit is an open source opinion-based community that might have some really good, really factual, insightful, in-depth information on it. and might also be a steaming hot pile of garbage and opinion-based statements that are not facts at all.
It absolutely might be those, yes.
So, it's gotta kind of get. The point is that there isn't that human filtering ability in there that understands the difference between factual presentation and opinion-based presentation or inaccurate, non-factual information. And if you are taking all of this just presented to you without any context, you might not differentiate between those either.
Yeah.
But the good news is that if you are looking for ways to maximize your discoverability and not necessarily looking for tips on how to use generative AI as a search tool, that could work in your favor. So, because having your book or having your content listed on these sources or referenced or cited or whatever on these sources that generative AI tools are considering high authority sources or known platforms or whatever, that is a great way for you to maximize your discoverability.
Yeah, always and in general.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, regardless of what's going on right now, I think like we said, there's things we're going to be talking about here where I think a year from now, a lot of them will still be relevant. There'll still be things you should be doing. There'll still be what is considered best practices. But yeah, anytime you can combine your content or something that you're doing with more authoritative platforms and or sources of validation, that's a good thing.
Right. Sources of validation is a great next point, actually, because that is another thing that these tools will consider is external validation.
Mm-hmm.
And this idea that it's not just looking at one individual source, so your website could be the most optimized website on the planet that is just designed to hand generative AI your information on a silver platter. But if your website is the only source on the entire website that mentions any of your content, that might not carry as much weight as somebody whose content and books and whatever are widespread on the internet.
Yeah, or at least have multiple other reference points,
Yes.
right? So, you could have a book or anything else for that matter, not just a book, but we'll stick to books here, but your product, your message, your service, whatever that might be, essentially what we're saying is the more people that cite it or talk about it or mention it or include it in something they're doing that are also of, stand-up nature, quality nature in terms of what they do, the better off yours is. It just boosts. It's similar to old school SEO where, back in the day you wanted to have as many links out there pointing to your site as possible. You wanted the internet, you wanted Google to think that your site was trusted by all these other sites, and that's why they were linking to your site, right? And there were good ways to do that, and there were bad ways to do that. People would create link farms, and you could go out and buy a bunch of links back to your site. And you're going to see stuff like that happening now where, if it's not already, actually, it probably is, where, people are going to offer you, oh, we'll have your content cited on 50 trusted, educational websites around the internet. Well, there are 50 websites that were spun up by AI. There's nothing trusted about them, and you just paid $150 for some coverage that's really not going to do you any good for the most part. So be careful with that. But it's the same concept, So if anybody understood link backs and things like that from back in the day, it's very similar.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be exclusively like links or citations or stuff. It can be mentions. Yep. It can be reviews. It can be this is my current TBR pile, and your book is included in the list of titles that I haven't even read it yet, but it's on my list of books to read soon. Like, any kind of mention like that counts as the phrase I saw was semantic weight, which I thought was an interesting phrasing for that. That it's giving like relevancy, just the mention of it is giving relevancy to your content.
Yeah.
So, yeah. There are other factors that go into this too. I want to get to the part where we talk about how to actually maximize this and make this work for you.
Well, let's go.
Other factors I just want to point out really quickly that we'll talk more about. AI loves to look for quotable, citable sources.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to do that, they're looking for clear, specific, and straightforward answers to questions. They're also looking for easily readable metadata. And I'm not just talking about book metadata at that point, although I definitely am. So make sure you go listen to that episode. But you can also make sure that your website's metadata is optimized for generative AI. There's a tool, Google has a tool called Google's Rich Results Search. Nope. Google's Rich Results Test. I have it linked in the show notes that you can use that to test how your website data looks in an AI search. So you can see if it's optimized for that or not.
Yeah. Sarah on our team has a lot of experience with that as well. That's something that, SEOs have been using for quite some time, but very relevant still.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of relevant, recency and relevancy in content is relevant in generative AI search. So, even if you wrote a really, really, really awesome, super relevant article 10 years ago, that might not be weighted as highly as something that was published a year ago or 6 months ago. So, keep that in mind, but we'll talk about what to do with that.
Yeah, it's hard to tell though, because you could have wrote something that was, or that is, let's say 8 to 10 years old, but maybe it was highly technical in nature. It's been cited by a lot of, really authoritative other entities, and it might still hold more weight in terms of the value of the information versus something that was more newly published. And that's where we quite don't know exactly how AI is in fact weighing some of those things.
Right.
Because again, if you have this piece of content that's 8 to 10 years old, but, by old SEO standards would still rank higher because of all the citations, because of all the other authoritative sites that refer to it, mention it, link to it, use content from it, and many other things. Again, you'd have 8 to 10 years of SEO built up behind that piece of content. And then something new, or newly published, we should say, a piece of content that is just as technical in nature and probably just as accurate, but let's just say it's not nearly as mature, so it also does not have the amount of, authoritative links and support that the other one does. We're just not sure how AI is handling that yet. We do think that in many cases it's prioritizing the newer version. So again, that's why we say be careful. Check all the sources where you can, because that older one might actually hold more value for what it is you're doing. But yeah, recency and relevancy are super important, but we're still not 100% positive how it's treating recency. I think it's still really weighing relevancy a little more heavily, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, again, going to reiterate the point that this is still very much something that we're all learning about.
Yeah.
This is not something that we can present to you as tried and tested, true, 100% fact for sure. This is something that we're all actively learning about right now. Like, I could go back to my desk immediately after recording this episode and get an article in a newsletter that is teaching me something new about this subject that we're talking about right now.
Definitely.
So probably will, honestly. At some point this week, I will get at least one article in my inbox that I may or may not read because, like we just talked about, I don't always read my blog posts that get sent to me, but I will read the book version. Well, I hope that email
comes and it says, Dear Elder Emo.
That would be amazing. I will respond to an email addressed to Elder Emo.
All right, so we've kind of covered like what's going on right now with search specifically. So, for this episode, Discoverability, we're talking specifically about search, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know how many authors played the search game over the years. I think a lot have tried. I think many have appeared in search results just based on doing some of the things you should have been doing anyways, and they were already doing them, and so voila, they've appeared in search results. Most authors I've talked to over the last 9 years that I've been at Lulu did not spend any real amount of time trying to, rank high in search engine results. because it isn't easy. But I think, again, what we're trying to say here is if you kind of just do the things that you really should be doing anyways, some of these things we're going to talk about right now, some of the things we've already talked about, you're already doing what you should be doing then. And I think that you're going to, hopefully, if these tools continue evolving in the direction we think they are, you might actually see your stuff appearing a lot more frequently on Google and some of these other search engine or outlets. So let's talk about some of those things that people should and could be doing.
Absolutely should be doing, could be doing. None of this is going to be new information if you've listened to this podcast. These are all things that we've talked about that you should be doing anyway. This is just really another reason why you should be doing them.
That's the beauty of it.
It absolutely is. And if you are listening to this still and you're like, I don't know about, like, if I care so much about Google search results, Google is not the only search engine. There are book relevant search engines that I'm not going to name because I don't want to, but you can go read the article in the show notes about what the top 7 worldwide search engines are and go check out what number 3 is and then tell me that this isn't relevant to you.
I mean, in general, yeah, but yes.
Yes. But yeah, so let's talk about how to actually, optimize your discoverability, and start right away with one of my favorite things that we talk about all the time.
Bracelets?
Sure, why not? Yeah.
I mean,
that could work, honestly.
Maybe.
Maybe. No, it is sharing consistent, relevant content on your own platforms. You want to be an active, I don't even want to say enthusiastic. I don't know what the next word is in that sentence. So you want to be actively engaged on your own platforms.
Actively and genuinely.
Yes.
Authentic. How about that?
Authentic is a great word for this. Absolutely.
That's the one thing AI can't do.
Correct.
Or one of the things, but the big thing it can't do is be authentically you.
Right. Right. That's literally just you. Wow, look at that. Motivational words.
Yeah. Am I done for the day?
Yes, you are.
But can I go eat second lunch?
When did you have first lunch?
Before.
I got to start doing first and second lunch. I don't have any lunch.
Missing out.
I know. You're going to want to make sure that you are staying active on your own website. If you have a blog, podcast, on your social media channels, on YouTube, again, whatever it is that you're doing, like we said, with the relevancy and recency, we're still not entirely sure which of those is weighted more than the other. So the way to maximize your opportunities on there is to make sure that you are consistently posting content, that you are staying active, staying relevant, staying recent. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that you're creating detailed long form content every single day. I'm not saying that. Don't burn yourself out trying to do this. But, regardless of whether you're creating, if you're a nonfiction author whose content lends itself to how-to content or educational content, whatever that might look like, guides, something like that. If you're a fiction author, you're creating behind-the-scenes content, reader guides, insights into your writing process, insights into what's coming next, whatever that looks like for you. Or maybe you're just taking some of your older content and reposting it, refreshing it with some updates to it and saying, hey, since I wrote this 5 years ago, I've learned some new things about it. Or I'm updating the links in here. We do that on our blog. You may notice that on the Lulu blog. We will periodically update posts that we've already published, and we just kind of go through. We're not doing massive updates on them, but we're just kind of going through and making sure is all the information that's in here still relevant?
Yeah.
Is it still accurate? All the links that we link to in here, do they still work? Is there any new information that we can add in here? It's not major changes, but we will.
The key is consistency.
Right.
So if you look at all the creators out there right now that have reached some level of success, however you define that. But again, if you think about the ones that have become household names or gone on to do other things, if you think about all the creators out there right now that are making a decent living off of that, whether it's YouTube or, writing books, it doesn't matter. Consistency is a big thing. and many of the experts out there will say the same thing. One of the most important things you could do is just be consistent. Not every post has to be a winner. Not every video has to get, 1 million views. Not every podcast has to get 6,000 downloads in the first 24 hours. Consistency. Just show up, be consistent. If your thing is that you're going to be online on your YouTube channel, your podcast, or whatever, your social, it doesn't matter what it is. But if you say, hey, I'm going to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you're going to find me here talking about something, then be there Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and just keep doing that. Consistency is key for a lot of things, even for a lot of these, search engines and large language models and other pieces of tech that are looking at, information and content. They are looking at consistency. How mature is this source of information? How long have they been around? That's a big thing. So consistency is extremely important here in what you just talked about.
Yes, for sure. Beyond that, though, is also, not necessarily consistency, but presence beyond your own platforms as well.
Yeah.
So that's another thing, we said about how they're looking for trusted authorities, trusted sources. They're looking for a presence on other websites, other places, things like that. This is a great opportunity for you to lean into some earned promo opportunities if you can. So guest blog posts, guest podcast appearances, book club appearances, interviews, even something like when Sarah was on here for the earned promo episode, she talked about Quoted and those other sources, including the one that is defunct that I can't remember the name of, where you can
help a reporter out. Yeah,
that one. That, people are just out there looking for, I'm looking for somebody that I can quote in an article about this, get your name out there, get your presence out there. But not just earned media opportunities. You can also create those opportunities yourself. You don't have to earn them entirely. If you are posting on your own blog on a regular basis, cross-post that content on Medium or Substack.
Yeah, I would argue, though, be careful how many channels you decide you want to cross-pollinate or branch out into.
Sure.
Remember, we also don't want to get into that age-old trap of, trying to be everywhere all the time and be all the things.
Right.
You're just going to burn yourself out. You really do want to focus on whatever channels you think you can show up for regularly and authentically. But I do think it's extremely important to go back to what you were saying just a second ago. Again, getting out onto channels that aren't yours. This is a great opportunity. We've talked about this before too, where, this is why it's important to establish relationships with other peers in your industry or what you do, other authors if you're a writer, other creators of video content if you're a YouTuber or whatever that might be, because it's a great opportunity to exchange. So when you start building that list of PR opportunities that we talk about in an earlier episode that we'll link to, it's always easier to first go to people that you have relationships with that have their own channels. So you might have made friends with somebody at a conference 6 months ago that has their own YouTube channel. Reach out to them. Hey, I just launched this new book, or I'm doing this thing, or, I'd love to get a little bit of extra exposure here. Can we trade out? Maybe I give you a guest spot on my blog and you give me, some airtime on your YouTube channel or your podcast or whatever that might be. So this is where those relationships that hopefully you're forming with others, through in-person events and other things, I think this is one of the areas where they're most helpful and impactful is activities like this. So you don't have to start from scratch all the time and go out there and try to find, these outlets that will, have you on their podcast or whatever that might be. So,
yeah. And don't underestimate, I guess, the possibilities of adjacent.
Sure.
Appearances as well, and it doesn't always have to be
genre
within,
adjacent or topic adjacent.
It doesn't always have to be within your own niche or within your own specific genre. I think about this all the time. One of my favorite podcasts, which is a theme park related podcast, they have guests on fairly often. And a couple of years ago, literally 2 years ago, and I still think about this episode. Sorry, they had a young adult author who had a new book coming out on the episode, unrelated. I think all three of those hosts like regularly joke about the fact that they read one book a year. Like none of them are big readers. They're not YA based. Like it's not relevant, but that author is a fan of their podcast. And when he was doing promo for the new book that he had coming out, he took a shot and reached out to this podcast and was like, hey, I'd love to talk to you guys. I'm also like a big theme park nerd, but I've got a new book coming out. It's tangentially related. It was around the Halloween season and it was a YA horror novel, I think. And he was like, shoot my shot. Why not? And not only was it such a great episode that they invited him back a year later for another episode, but I went out and bought his book after listening to that episode because it was like, he was such a fun guest on there. I don't think I'm ever going to read it. It's not my genre and it's not like something that I have a whole lot of interest in, but I liked his presence on that episode enough that I went out and bought the book.
Okay.
Don't discount that possibility.
I think your advice is highly or hyper relevant. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it is giving, like, it's giving when somebody is searching for his name or somebody is searching for content related to him. This is another resource that's going to come up. And, this is a podcast that is now it's 8 years old. At the time, it was 6 years old, that is consistently putting out 1 to 2 episodes a week all year round. They have like a very established, like known part of a podcast network kind of thing. Like that is a reliable, known source. That is another place that is going to cite this author's content. So why not? Like, why not take those opportunities or go after those opportunities if you can? They're going to add value to your marketing efforts in more than one way.
Yep.
Yeah. Kind of similar on that. Make sure that you're remembering that community validation part of the what generative AI is looking for. We talk about this all the time as well. Like I said, none of this is new information. This is all stuff that we've been saying you should be doing probably since the second episode that we've recorded of this podcast. Yeah. But, this is an opportunity for you to...
Wait, why the second episode? Why not the first?
Well, the first one we just talked about ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
The first one was an intro episode.
Should probably redo it.
We should redo the intro
or just
episode.
Delete it.
No, I would ruin my metrics
Just start
forever.
with episode 2.
Terrible idea. Actually, no, that was technically episode 0.
Ah.
So,
okay.
Yeah, we got it. Don't worry. But, take the time to participate in community spaces when you have the opportunity to, in reader spaces, as long as you're doing it authentically. Again, make sure that you're not in there crossing lines that you shouldn't. But if you have opportunities to, I'm not going to get into it.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask what that means, but, use your best judgment, I guess.
We did a whole episode on it, actually.
Yeah.
But, this is an opportunity for you to do things like host AMAs on Reddit. I see authors all the time that are doing AMAs on Reddit, and it takes an hour of their time to establish some community-based attention, references. I saw multiple reference points that pointed to Reddit as being a known source that generative AI pulls from. So that's a great opportunity for you. I mean, personally, you wouldn't catch me on Reddit if it was the end of the world. But if you're somebody who thinks that it makes sense for you to authentically have a presence on there, then do it.
I think there are people who have been able to establish authentic subreddits, groups, whatever, on Reddit. I think in general, Reddit's doing a good job of trying to shed their old image. So, regardless of how Lauren and I might feel about Reddit, the results are definitely starting to creep more and more into search and things like that. So if that is a space you're already comfortable with, great. Double down on it. Make sure you're really representing yourself well in there. And, hopefully that has already been helping or will help. But, I just wanted to throw that in there before we have the Reddit army coming after us.
To be totally fair, my disdain for Reddit has very little to do with the content or population of people on Reddit, and everything to do with the fact that I find it to be the least user-friendly website on
You
God's
don't like
entire
them
internet.
because as a collective, they've probably talked more trash about Taylor Swift than any other outlet on the internet.
There's an entire subreddit of people that are ex-Kanye fans that became Taylor Swift fans.
Well, that makes total sense.
So I disagree with that. No, I just find it really, really difficult to navigate. Like, I don't find it to be a user-friendly experience in any way, shape, or form, and I just can't do it. But it's fine. It's neither here nor there. Last thing that you want to keep in mind is, again, your metadata. If I said it 3 times in this episode, then I still haven't said it enough. Your metadata is really important. Your book metadata, your website metadata, even things like your social media profiles and stuff like that. That information is really important for your discoverability. So make sure you know what's going on there. Take some time doing. Wait, I was just about to say it, and then I had a sudden flash of you saying that you hated the word audit.
We are recording this, as a matter of fact, on the day before taxes are due.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
This will air afterwards.
Yes, it will.
So a lot of people probably won't like the word audit right now.
That's understandable, and I'm sorry for
And
bringing
in the coming weeks.
I'm sorry for bringing it into this episode.
To be fair, I don't think they're going to be doing much audit this year.
That's true. That's true. But what's the other word we decided we were going to use instead?
Review?
Review, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Review your own discoverability. Take the opportunity, whether you're going to use like an incognito browser window maybe, or a public computer at a library. Go to the Apple Store and use their computer, whatever. Doesn't matter. But get an opportunity to see how your book and how your website and how your content is delivered to you on search from not your own source, because obviously your algorithms are going to be biased towards websites that you've already.
Your browser already has all that stuff stored in it. So
exactly. So yeah, figure out how to make the most use of that, and go from there. There was that tool, remember, also the rich result test, the Google search thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm also gonna kind of highlight again, even though we've made this point a couple of times already, everything that we talked about here, while it is hopefully going to help maximize your discoverability with generative AI and search results in the year 2025, these are all also things that are actually going to help you build your audience of actual people.
Of actual people and not robots. It's important to make that distinction,
yes,
because that's how Lauren has it in her outline.
I actually have the titles for these 2 sections are optimizing your AI discoverability and maximizing your AP discoverability. I did want to see if I could trip Matt up with the AP, because I was trying to think of what else. And
with your fake terminology.
The only thing that I could think of was annual pass.
That would be a good guess.
That would have been a good guess.
Yeah.
But no, you figured it out. So
by actual people, you mean doing things like, relationship-based marketing versus algorithm marketing, things like that.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I mean. Which we've made that point already recently. We will make it again, I'm sure. Your focus on relationship marketing should be your primary focus these days. If you're trying to grow your audience, if you're trying to grow your brand, if that is something that you're looking for long-term success and not, I want to sell, 1,000 copies of this one book and then I'm going to disappear off the face of the internet and never publish another thing ever again, and I don't care what my legacy behind me is after that. Sure, whatever, maximize your algorithmic marketing at that point. I think I've said the word maximize like 80 times in this episode.
Maximize, optimize. You've hit them all. You've hit all the marketing and business buzzwords.
I hate it.
That's all right.
I hate that I've become this person.
Well, you almost can't do this episode without it.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But this is a good opportunity for you to stop using those marketing buzzwords and business buzzwords and build more authentic, genuine relationships with your audiences, creating content that humanizes you to your audiences. So, again, long form video, even short form video, social media that you're actually getting in front of a camera on. You know, we see people on TikTok all the time that are as authentic as they could possibly be, or certainly seem that way.
Maybe sometimes too authentic.
Right. People that I'm like, do you know you can delete takes, right? Like, you know, you don't have to film everything in one take.
Some people, that's how they live their life now.
It's incredible.
Can't even go to the grocery store without seeing people filming TikToks in the produce section.
Don't get me started on it.
It's ridiculous.
Don't get me started on it. There's a time and place. But there was a quote, actually, Chelsea said in the episode that we did with her recently that like really stuck out to me. I actually used it for the social promo for that episode, where she said that more and more with the world that we live in with AI and automation, I think people are really hungry for authenticity. Mm-hmm. And I think she's really right about that. And that really kind of like lived in my brain for the entire week that I was editing that episode. And I think that couldn't be more accurate. So, you know, while this whole episode is talking about how to, you know, better prepare yourself for generative AI search results, the whole point of it is to build your relationships and your like authentic human connections with your readers, with your audience, with your fans, so that you have that in place instead.
Yep.
And that you're not relying exclusively on algorithmic search results.
Yeah.
I don't know. What else is there?
That's it.
That's it.
It's crazy because we got about 3/4 of the way through this, and I just started feeling like this is all stuff that we've already said 1,000 times. But it's weird because it's all relevant to discoverability and search, especially with AI. And it's just like, I don't know. I mean, you know, if it's this, I don't know. It just seems like these are the things that you should be doing, you know, and regardless of what situation we're talking about, whether that's building an email list or, you know, becoming more discoverable in online searches or how to show up at in-person events in a successful way. Like, I don't know, like it's the same things right now. Like if you just do these things, I think that, you know, and you do them consistently, I think that, you know, you're going to find whatever your version of success is. Because no matter how much you research it, no matter who's telling you, like, it still always kind of boils down to some of the same core tenets of like, you're trying to market yourself. You're trying to market your book, your service, your brand, whatever it is you're doing. And then, you know, yeah, I just think there's a lot of similarities every time we talk about one of these things. So I hope that people are getting that and putting those into practice. Because, you know, the last thing we need is a bunch more crappy marketers on the planet.
Yes, there's plenty of those out there already.
Oh, my gosh.
But no, I think you're right, honestly. And that was something that actually this is kind of right around the point in this outline where I felt like I was just repeating myself over and over again, too. And I kind of had that same realization of like, this is not that we just keep saying the same things over and over again, but that all roads lead here. Like no matter what angle we're taking, no matter what the subject that we're talking about is, no matter what like we're talking about in terms of this is how you maximize your book's discoverability. This is how you turn your audience of casual fans into true fans. This is how you convince your readers to buy directly from you instead of buying from third-party retailers, whatever it is. All of these roads lead to these efforts and these things that we've talked about. And so, you know, I think really kind of the point here is if we haven't already convinced you of the value of doing these things, here is yet another reason why you should be doing them.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Maybe that's where we're at. Maybe that's where we leave it.
Yes. Human impressions over digital impressions. Always.
Always. I think we could have just summed this whole episode up in two sentences.
That's going to be my next t-shirt.
I like it.
Okay.
Time for CEX.
Yeah, I'll probably have them just in time for CEX. Yes.
That could be a fun shirt for CEX though. I bet people will like them.
That was the tagline or slogan I wanted for CEX, but I don't remember if I actually submitted the trademark for it. But yeah,
no time like the present.
That was going to be the slogan for CEX was human impressions over digital impressions.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, still got time.
That's true.
That's true.
Yeah, we'll see.
And we'll talk more about it. If you don't know what CEX is, we'll talk more about that soon. But you should definitely look into it. I'll link it in the show notes too.
Yep.
There's a bunch of resources in the show notes for this episode, so I would encourage you to check those out if you have any questions about anything. I also changed which 3 episodes I had linked in here like 6 times, including actively during the episode, because there are so many different ones that tie into this.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to go listen to some other episodes that you think are relevant to this one or that we think are relevant to this one, I can recommend several. So definitely go do that. You'll find some blog posts, YouTube videos, and articles and resources from other places as well, including some of the ones that we cited throughout this episode. So
cool.
Go check that out. And while you're there, you can always like and subscribe.
Yes.
We'd appreciate that. Leave us a review. Email us at podcast@lulu.com or comment on Instagram or YouTube or something and tell us what you want to hear more about. I'm not going to say what you want to hear less about because I already know the answer is going to be Disney, and we're not going to stop talking about Disney. So
we didn't talk about it hardly at all in this episode.
No, not really.
So,
but we could do a whole episode about Disney if that would balance it out.
Do multiple episodes about Disney.
I would love. Can we do one? Can we just pick one day when we're both really not in the mood to record something real? Can we do a Disney episode?
Yeah.
If you have any questions about Disney that you think that you would like to see Matt and I off the cuff answer, now is your opportunity.
That's scary.
A room by room breakdown of the differences between the Haunted Mansion in California and the Haunted Mansion in Orlando.
Well, and now you could also throw in Paris because you were there.
I could talk about.
What are they called? The Phantom Mansion?
Phantom Manor.
Phantom Manor.
And it was very cool. It was really cool.
What was your what's your favorite of the 3? Now that you've been to 3.
Oh, that's a really hard question. It's gonna have to be the Orlando one.
See, I think I agree too. I haven't seen the one in Paris, but just between Orlando and Anaheim, I still like the Orlando one a little bit better. And I don't know if it's nostalgia or, I don't know, because internally, they're almost identical for the most part. Externally, they're quite different though. But I don't know. All right.
We're gonna have to dive into that in another episode.
Yeah.
Oh well. In the meantime, you can always find us on social, email, check out some of our other episodes on YouTube. They're great there. Highly recommend. Just saying.
Yeah.
And email us if you have any questions or episode topic ideas. We'd love to hear from you. And until then, we will be back next week with another new episode.
Later.
Bye. To learn more about this episode, check out the show notes on publishprosperpodcast.com. Publish and Prosper is brought to you by Lulu.com. To hear more episodes like this one, please like and subscribe wherever you listen. Thanks for tuning in.